digital spaces, our presence provokes disquiet. We are increasingly visible as workers in political spaces, and here too our presence provokes disquiet. Many people want to stop us from selling sex, or just ensure they don't have to look at us. But we are notoriously hard to get rid of, at least through criminal law. Prostitution is heavy with meaning and brings up deeply felt emotions. This is especially the case for people who have not sold sex and who think of it in symbolic terms. The idea of prostitution serves as a lightning rod for questions about work, masculinity, class, bodies, about archetypal villainy and punishment, about who deserves what, about what it means to live in a community, and about what it means to push some people outside that community's boundaries. Attitudes towards prostitution have always been strongly tied to questions of race, borders, migration, and national identity, in ways which are sometimes overt, but often hidden. Sex work is the vault in which society stores some of its keenest fears and anxieties. Perhaps the most difficult questions raised by prostitution involve what it means to be a woman in a patriarchal society. Feminist writer Kate Millett notes feminist rhetoric suggesting that all women are prostitutes, that marriage is prostitution. Sex workers have long noted with ambivalence the interplay between prostitution as a site of metaphor and as an actual workplace. In 1977, the sex worker-led collective PROS, Programme for Reform of the Law on Soliciting, wrote in the iconic UK feminist magazine Spare Rib that it wanted the women's liberation movement to think about the whole thing, prostitution, and discuss it, but not just use it, explaining that the women's movement has used the word prostitute in a really nasty way about housewives to sum up their idea of the exploited situation of women. They noted that this interest in the metaphorical uses of prostitute was not accompanied by much practical support for sex workers' efforts to tackle criminalisation. In some ways, little has changed. Contemporary feminists' disapproval of prostitution remains unmoored from pragmatism. More political energy goes to obstructing sex work than to what is really needed, such as helping sex workers avoid prosecution or ensuring viable alternative livelihoods that are more than respectable drudgery. As trans sex worker community leader Kyan Doroshow has said, "If you don't want sex workers doing the work, sweetie, employ them. Employ them. Have a solution." Our concern is for the safety and the survival of people who sell sex. Like Doroshow and PROS before us, we are ultimately focused on the practical and material rather than the symbolic or metaphorical. Approaching sex work from this perspective provokes certain questions. What conditions best enable someone who wants to quit sex work to do so? What conditions lead people to sell sex, or make sex work their only opportunity for survival? What gives a sex worker more power in negotiating with an employer, and what reduces their power? All over the world, sex workers use strategies to stay safe, working with a friend in the next room, or in a small group on the street, visibly noting down a client's car number plate, or asking for his ID, to show him that he is not anonymous. Can a sex worker call a colleague in as backup if a client refuses to use a condom? What are the consequences of calling the police, or of being visible to them as a gaggle on the street? What does it mean for a sex worker when their client or manager is afraid of the police? Who is at risk of deportation and homelessness, and why? These are the kinds of questions about people's material conditions, that concern us, as authors and as sex workers. This is not a memoir. This book, and the perspective of the contemporary left sex worker